It's late evening, and inside a dimly lit police station in Irving, Texas, a surveillance camera captures a woman wandering. Wearing glasses, a surgical mask, a sweater, and shorts, and clutching some personal items in her left arm, she appears confused. There is no one at reception to help her. The front desk of Irving's South Station is not staffed at this time, so she walks off camera and circles. At some point, she's told if she needs to make a police report, she can use the phone that's hanging on the reception wall. After about 13 minutes of pacing, at 10:09 p.m., she finally locates it. Earlier that day, Madison McDonald was home with her two girls, 6-year-old Archer and 23-month-old Lillian. She had taken the day off work and called the girls' school to keep them at home. All day, they watched television, played games, and ate their favorite foods. At around 9:30 p.m., she grabs some paperwork, including birth certificates and some electronic devices, and gets into her white Chevy Suburban, drives about 20-something minutes south to this station, and picks up the phone to make an extraordinary admission.
April 5th, 2021.
The report she'll make, her subsequent interaction with police, and her prior contact with the system will challenge you to analyze the evidence and then contemplate the answer to the following question. Will this woman be held culpable for the tragedy you will learn about? Because this isn't a mystery, it is not a whodunit. This is about a 30-year-old woman who goes after the ones she sought to protect in The Conspiracy.
Irving Police, Logan, may I help you?
Hi, I was told to use this phone to call dispatch to get an officer to make a report.
What kind of report and which station are you at?
I'm at the South Station, and it's for multiple things. Child pornography and murder.
Police department. Police! Irving Police. Anybody home?
Irving Police Sergeant Christopher Ryder was first inside the locked apartment at 715 Cowboys Parkway. The front door opened immediately to stairs on the right, up which was the main living area with a kitchen in the right corner. Adjacent to the kitchen was the master bedroom, its door slightly open, and inside, the room unlit. Sergeant Ryder's handgun flashlight illuminates the room with a bed that looks like it's been slept in. He pulls on the blanket to reveal a little girl lying on her right side.
Yeah, I've got one in here. God damn it.
His words suggest he was expecting to see a child, and that's because he was.
And who was murdered?
My children.
The sergeant then calls up Irving Fire, but it looks bad.
Where you at? Over here. I got one right here. Yeah, here, what? I don't think so. I was trying to shake her. She's not moving. She's not responding. God damn it. Fuck. Where's the monitor? We gotta get a... Fuck.
6-year-old Archer was showing the telltale signs of death. Firefighter Jeffrey Manderville knew immediately there was nothing they could do because of the widespread reddish-purple color indicative of lividity, which starts anywhere from 30 minutes to a couple of hours after death. The patient care report said it all. Obvious death and no resuscitation attempted. Near Archer's body was a pillow with some blood in a clear indentation, suggesting this was likely used to kill her. A toxicology showed she had a high amount of hydroxyzine, which is an antihistamine with sedative properties, and sertraline, more commonly known as Zoloft. Both of those were prescribed to the little girl. Archer was a very active child. Her father Tim described her as a bit of a handful, as she had a lot of energy and was tough to keep up with. Nicknamed Monkey, he said she loved running around, climbing things, playing with other kids on the playground, school, and loved being a big sister to her half-sibling, Lillian.
How many children you have?
I have two.
Susan Marshall was also a sergeant with Irving PD. As soon as she's up the stairs, she takes a left opposite of the master bedroom and enters what looks to be a child's room.
That one. Is there any in here?
I'm checking over here right now.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Yes. Oh my God. 60 to 18.
Resting on her back with her head turned to the right, 23-month-old Lillian was tucked in neatly, wearing a pink shirt and a diaper. She had long passed away. She had what's called a foam cone, which is body fluid coming out of her nose and mouth. Medical examiner Dr. Emily Ogden testified that this is typically seen in overdoses with opiates, or those involving respiratory depressants, such as Benadryl and alprazolam, more commonly known as Xanax. Lillian had high amounts of hydroxyzine, Xanax, acetaminophen Tylenol, and cough-suppressant dextromethorphan. The medical examiner said she would have been very sleepy and had slowed breathing. The medications combined could have eventually killed Lillian, but they were only part of the cause of death.
Who murdered them?
I sedated them and smothered them.
Thanks to their mother's admission and the bruising on both girls' faces, the cause of death for both was ruled as suffocation in the setting of drug intoxication, in the setting of indicating that the medical examiner could not discount the effect those drugs had on the girls' respiratory systems when they were smothered. Archer also had petechiae on her face, which is the result of blood vessels bursting because of pressure. Despite the drugs impairing her motor functions, Archer fought as she was being smothered, thus requiring her mom to apply more pressure.
You know for sure that they are deceased?
Yes.
Madison, were you dealing with some type of depression, like hearing voices? Is an officer there?
No and no.
Okay.
I have a diagnosed condition, but that has nothing to do with this.
There were a number of medications in Madison's apartment, including in cabinets in the master bathroom and the kitchen. She had been prescribed clonidine, lithium, and Latuda.
This has to do with the harassment and abuse and exploitation that we've been going through in our family that I've been fighting to save.
It took officers less than 5 minutes to get to the police station. When they enter, Madison will still be on the phone with dispatch, and their night will just be getting started.
I stayed with them for a little bit because I didn't want to leave them. But they can't keep getting hurt. I've tried to get help so many times.
Let me ask you this. Were your kids sexually assaulted or...
I have strong reason to believe, and I've been fighting to prove it. Like I said, I've even filed a report already.
So do you think that they were?
Yes.
Or no? Okay,
yes.
And by whom?
By their dads, and I don't know who else.
Which is your ex-husband, right?
They have different dads.
Oh, okay.
2 officers just walked in.
Okay, go ahead and talk to him, okay, Madison? Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Place the property on the... You don't have any weapons or anything on you?
No, sir.
Okay. Place everything down. Okay, so what's going on?
We've been going through a very, very traumatic and scary situation in the family for about a year now, and I've been trying to prove that there are people that are hurting my children, and everyone keeps shutting it down or saying they're not going to talk about it or won't help me get help.
Roughly 0.3% of the U.S. population suffers from a chronic mental illness called schizoaffective disorder, and Madison is one of them. Born in Knoxville, Tennessee, she was one of 2 kids to parents who would divorce when she was 6. She was considered an advanced child because she talked and walked early, and was later found to have an above-average intelligence. But her mom, Julie, a nurse by training, said she noticed something off about her daughter at a very young age, one unforgettable example being when she deliberately burned her skin at 13. The little girl, who received counseling after her parents' divorce, told her mother that she had intrusive thoughts about harming herself and was thereafter taken to the partial hospitalization program at Cook Children's Health, where she was diagnosed with depression and, 4 years later, with bipolar disorder, modified at a later date to add schizoaffective disorder. She would also be diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and generalized anxiety disorder. Madison reported that her father, who was in Afghanistan with the military, was a paranoid, raging alcoholic and a scary man who allegedly said he never wanted her to be born and that her mental health issues made her defective. Her mother, who believed her ex-husband had his own mental health issues, claimed that he was emotionally abusive and distant with her, but not with her little brother. Madison also alleged that her father had a severe porn addiction and would openly watch in the living room. As she described it, the real turning point in her life came when she was attending Weatherford High School, where she began partying, smoking weed, and drinking alcohol. At 15 years old, she reported to police that she was raped by 3 individuals after blacking out at an older teen party. She said she had a rape kit done, but the police never brought charges because the boys said it was consensual. She said her life went downhill after that. She began partying heavily, became disinterested in school, and flunked out of the University of North Texas after 2 years. She later attended North Central Texas College, got a dental hygienist assistant certification, worked for 1 year at a dental office, and then started a series of jobs including bartending, during which she said her alcohol consumption and drug usage spiraled out of control. She said she started abusing pain meds and dabbling in drugs like ecstasy, cocaine, and weed to numb the pain. Her mother reported her becoming extremely angry and defiant, and Madison herself reported having internal rage with no clear triggers, and dreaming about anger and associations with serial killers. In 2017, she reported having seizures which were determined not to be biological, but psychological or stress-induced. She reported experiencing sleepless nights with days of high energy, racing thoughts, confusion, euphoria, irritable mood swings, depressive periods, mania, and paranoid thoughts.
My family is in some kind of online exploitation, solicitation, images, videos, something with me and my kids, and I don't know who else. And someone's got to help, but I can't watch them keep crying and screaming and not wanting daddy to touch them or not being able to get their diaper changed because she's so fucked up. I've tried so hard.
The last time Madison tried to get help was November 20th, 2020. Irving PD got an urgent call from Julie telling them that her daughter was going through a mental health crisis and that her children were in trouble. Julie had learned that Madison was at Dallas-Fort Worth International Airport looking for the FBI to end what she believed was a European sex trafficking and porn ring, and that she was heading to the Primrose School of Valley Ranch to pick up Archer. But the police who received that advanced intel were already at the school to intercept her. Madison was arrested and taken against her will to Parkland Memorial Hospital. Upon admission, she exhibited disorganized thoughts, poor focus, and pressured speech, read a summary of her appearance. She reported she had left an abusive relationship in May 2020. After 4 days at Parkland, she was court-ordered to Dallas Behavioral Health Care Hospital on November 24th. The consequential call that hospitalized Madison came on the heels of at least 7 separate complaints to police, some claiming her family, including her mother, were involved in the trafficking ring, which provided enough evidence that she was a danger to herself and/or her children. For example, 6 days prior, on November 14th, 2020, Madison was driving around town with Lillian, passing notes to bystanders and employees at various locations, including a Walmart and fast food restaurants. A clerk at the Burger King at 2525 West Airport Freeway described a woman taking an unusually long time at the drive-thru menu board. When she came around to the window, the clerk said the woman was nervous, her hand visibly shaking as she handed over her credit card, with a note stuck to it. "Call the FBI tip line, not the police," the note said. "Tell them a woman and her 2 kids are in danger." At a little past midnight that very day, a cop made contact with her and she admitted that she was the one passing the notes. Madison explained the situation and said her phone and email were tapped, but the cop thought she was possibly delusional. That same day, she called police to report that a male ran from her apartment and into the neighbor's place next door, but the neighbors shook their head. When asked whether she had taken her meds, Madison got defensive and angry. The case was closed as a mental health incident, one of several that were concluded as same, but none bigger than the one that September, when she filed for divorce from her husband, Chris. She had started experiencing paranoid ideations about him, including allegedly finding evidence that he was the one following her, watching her through her tapped or hacked devices, and, worst of all, that he was allegedly sexually assaulting his teenage daughter and posting videos of the assaults and of her on Pornhub.
So you're saying your ex-husband has been sexually abusing your kid?
Correct. He's got videos, he's got all kinds of shit online.
On September 14th, she brought her computer to a police interview room, logged into Pornhub.com, and pointed to a specific woman in some of the videos that she believed was her. But there were obvious differences between them. She claimed parts of the woman's body in the video were altered. Police didn't believe it. They went to Chris to be thorough. He let them into his home and allowed them to search his devices. Nothing of the kind was found. No charges were filed, and the case was closed on October 5th, 2020. Madison's paranoia about a trafficking ring appeared to emerge after a call to the FBI at around 9 p.m. on July 5th, 2020. Madison didn't specify what this was about, but her mom Julie admitted that back in August 2019, she was unwittingly involved in a scam where she wired to a suspicious Romanian boyfriend approximately $42,000 out of Madison's account, which was injected with inheritance money after her father's passing. Madison said she didn't get help, and she thereafter started to believe that this was now some large enterprise that both the police and her mom were engaged in.
CPS took them away from me after I filed the report because my husband told them that I was unstable, and they got sent to live with my mom and him, and that stuff was happening then too. And when you're a mom and you know someone's hurting your kids, you have to stop it. I have full custody of the oldest, and we have joint custody of the youngest, but that's only because that was in a settlement. I asked for full with a protective order.
Yeah.
I spent, $26,000 fighting him to not have him have access to her or his mom. Again, this is like a family thing. It doesn't even make sense. It's so crazy. But they continue to tell me that I have to abide by their rules and their time and their visits, and I need less time with the kids, I need more time away, blah, blah, blah. And it's like every day they just present themselves as worse individuals. I've been harassed. Someone's coming in my apartment. I told the detectives that the first time. My husband had my car key originally, which has my garage door clicker. It's like a townhouse apartment. Messing with my stuff. They've logged into my Apple ID and they're messing with it's just harassment all day, every day to keep me quiet. So it got to the point where I basically said, look, this is unfortunate and no one will understand that as a mother, you do anything in this world that you can do to keep them safe. And if that means I have to eliminate them and then pay the price for the rest of my life, I will. But they're hurting them. They're hurting them. I can't do it anymore. I've been fighting for so long to get help, and nothing's happening.
After being released from Dallas Behavioral Health in December, Madison was to attend regular weekly sessions in what's called intensive outpatient therapy to, among other things, develop better coping skills, which appeared to yield significant progress towards stabilization. By early 2021, she had a job at Kohl's, got a fresh fill of her medications, and had not uttered another accusation at anyone since her hospital visit. But the biggest news was yet to come. During the great winter storm that year, Julie, Madison, the fathers of her children, and a representative from Child Protective Services hopped on a group call together. The topic: custody of Archer and Lillian. Up to that point, Madison had agreed to give up rights to the children for 6 months, with supervised visits, pending improvement in her health. But the version of Madison they got on the call was completely different than the one they had for the past year.
When I got out, like I said, CPS took the kids. And so ever since then, they basically let me know that if my husband and my mom, the ex-husband, that if I don't follow along with what they say and what they want about the kids and how much time they get the kids, that they're going to take them away and tell people that I need to go back to a hospital, which I don't need to go to a hospital. Someone needs to get them help.
Seeing the mental health improvement, Julie agreed to hand Archer back, while Chris, who didn't want to separate the little girls, trusted that it was the right move to release Lillian to her mother. CPS agreed with the arrangement.
So what was different about today?
They've both been discussing taking the kids again. I don't know. I knew my time was running out. I knew that they were going to take them.
Can you walk upstairs so we get out of here and call that?
The month prior to the call, CPS found that Madison was not responsible for neglectful supervision of her children, a charge leveled against her after she was arrested. CPS concluded that she had a mental health incident, sought help, and had been proactive and cooperative with the department. In telemedicine appointments, in fact, Madison reported being happy and doing very well. But Dr. Lisa Clayton, a psychiatrist hired by the defense to evaluate her, thought something more was going on here. Miss McDonald presents very well compared to some mentally ill people, she testified. So I don't know if they were kind of fooled by that or they were short-staffed, but yes, they obviously missed a dangerous situation.
I didn't want to do this. There was no other option.
How do you feel about me having bipolar was the question that first clued Chris in about what Madison was dealing with. The two were lying in bed one night, Madison still pregnant with Lillian, when the question came out of nowhere. "I'll deal with it," Chris recalled saying, but he said he didn't know at the time what bipolar disorder was or why the conversation came up when it did. Chris had seen some medications Madison had in the home but didn't probe too much into them. Madison told him she took a pill for energy, and that's about it. The two met on dating website Match.com in 2017 and, after only about a month of talking, quickly became partners on June 6th of that year and lived together with the kids in Chris's home. Exactly a year after they started dating, on June 6, 2018, Chris proposed to her. Their plan was to wait another year before they got married, but then they found out Madison was pregnant with Lillian, so they moved the date up and, on January 1st, 2019, they officially tied the knot. Beautiful was how Chris described the first 2 years of their relationship. Probably the most amazing relationship I've ever had, he continued. In the first year, there were no issues, no disagreements, and no fights, he said. But Madison did have a habit of keeping her lovers in the dark about certain things. He didn't know about her mental health issues and, prior to dating, he didn't even know she had Archer from a past relationship with Tim, who she met in 2013 at Valley Hope, a substance abuse treatment center in Grapevine, Texas. She was very easy to talk to, Tim said about Madison, who was being treated for alcohol and a cocaine addiction as she cared for her sick father in South Lake. "We got along really well from the very beginning and I just kind of fell for her," he said. The dating relationship turned serious quickly when she got pregnant with Archer. Tim said this was very early on in the relationship and that he was both very scared and excited to be a father, which was made official when Archer was born in October 2014. The pair moved out of her father's place and into an apartment in Grapevine, where the relationship hit some major bumps. Tim said he continued to struggle with substance abuse, while Madison, he would only learn later, had schizoaffective disorder, bipolar type. He said after she became a mother, he noticed her showing more depression and anxiety related to Archer's safety. But this paranoia wasn't extreme and didn't interfere with her ability to raise the kid, at least initially. After all, she was being treated by a psychiatrist and prescribed various antipsychotics, antidepressants, and anti-anxiety meds. But things never really were the same after her father died of liver failure from alcoholism in 2015. Madison said after that she started hearing a voice from a man named Mark, who told her to drown Archer, a child who was not easy to handle. According to a medical report citing Madison, Archer was diagnosed with behavioral anxiety and was hyperactive, defiant, and very emotional. Madison reported having difficulty with Archer's tantrums, for example. For 3 months, the child had been screaming and was becoming physically violent, with Madison claiming that the little girl hit her in the stomach with a metal toilet paper stand on the morning of that report. She said she had to restrain her and admitted to slapping her. Madison and Tim would break up and get back together several times until the spring of 2017, when they officially called it quits. Madison, who would get custody of Archer, said she was the one to break up with him because he struggled with his addiction. Despite the separation, Madison and Tim were still best friends, even after Madison moved on to Chris within a month of their breakup. A doctor observed that Madison had traits of borderline personality disorder in that she had brief shifts in emotions and found it difficult staying alone, rapidly jumping from one relationship to another. Like Tim, Chris said the relationship at the beginning was great, but he said things started taking a turn for the worse after the birth of Lillian in mid-May 2019, and really after the pandemic was declared in March 2020. With schools closed, Madison, who was a stay-at-home mom up until late 2020, was now saddled with 3 children, including Chris's older daughter. Chris said she was more frustrated because it was a lot to manage, and she was constantly worrying about the pandemic and what that meant for their health and safety. On one visit to the doctor in April 2020, Madison said she had intrusive thoughts about, but never was going to act on, harming Lillian, a child she didn't expect to have because she didn't really want more kids, according to her mother. That month, she accused Chris of being verbally and emotionally abusive toward her, which he said surprised him because it was not true. He did admit, though, that she didn't like the fact that he had a lot of female friends. Regardless, it was all a little too much for Madison. That April, she asked for a divorce, claiming she didn't feel her kids were safe around him and, within weeks, moved out to the apartment on Cowboys Parkway with the children. While Chris didn't initially want the divorce, he said in a CPS interview that the divorce was due to Madison not being able to get along with his mother and having conflict with his daughter, who said she couldn't handle Madison's mood swings. Despite all of that, neither filed for divorce immediately, and the two were still romantically involved and would talk all the time. And then came September 2020, when Madison filed for that divorce. Chris got his own lawyer after consulting with his mother, which upset Madison because she wanted them to go through hers alone. She thereafter leveled false accusation after false accusation against him, spying, sexual assault, and filming her and the girls without their consent, and posting them on the web as part of this large sex trafficking operation. And Madison continued to convey a real belief that this illegal enterprise existed after the death of her children, which played an important role in her legal case. On June 14, 2022, the defense filed a motion seeking to argue that their client, Madison McDonald, was insane at the time of the crime. She argued that this wasn't murder because she believed at the time that smothering the children would only suspend them temporarily in heaven until she could uncover this trafficking ring, after which the children would be returned to her. In a case with an insanity defense, there are 2 different exams. There's the competency evaluation to determine whether the defendant is fit for trial, and then there's the evaluation to determine whether the defendant was insane at the time of the offense. Both the experts for the state and defense eventually found that Madison was competent for trial. The contention then rested in what will eventually become a trial, with dueling expert testimony on insanity. Defense expert Dr. Lisa Clayton, who spent nearly 11 hours with Madison, found that she was insane that night. During her evaluations, she said Madison continued to have paranoid delusions that her family, police, state lawyers, and even her own attorneys and the judge were part of the trafficking ring, and that there was no evidence that she actually took her meds leading up to that night. In fact, in a letter dated April 5th at 1:36 p.m., the exact time she said she smothered Lillian, Madison writes to her family, "Cannot control my own phone account. Car has built-in Wi-Fi plus GPS that I can't turn off or control. Never had accurate search history online, and when I place calls, they are denied or routed elsewhere. All my accounts have been hacked. Chris finding me before I knew or met him. Mom's money wire. And girl's vaginal plus tummy issues." Madison's team requested that the jury instructions include the lesser offenses manslaughter and criminally negligent homicide. Before psychologist Christy Compton was hired by the court to do the insanity evaluation, she was asked by the state to do the competency exam. Madison, at that point, was taking her higher-dosed medications consistently enough where she understood the legal proceedings. But even at the competency stage, Compton could not help but take note of the woman's mental state. She testified that she was 95% certain that Madison would meet the criteria for insanity. Basically, that she did not know that what she did on April 5th, 2021, was legally wrong. That preliminary opinion, however, came before Compton got the interrogation tape. Madison was escorted from the lobby and deeper inside the station to get booked and photographed, her right hand with Archer tattooed on the wrist, showing a substance that looked like blood. She was then brought into the interview room at 5:48 a.m. the morning after the incident.
I think I'm still in shock, so it's hard to remember certain parts. I'm not gonna lie, it's like it's blacked out. I don't remember specifics of the morning, but I knew that they weren't gonna go to school. I was gonna keep them home and have a day with them.
Okay.
I've done it before when I got scared. Where
Your mom, you can do that.
Where we just had a day. We ordered our favorite foods. We played our favorite games. We watched our favorite shows. we played, we hung out at our PJs, whatever. So we were going to have a day, and then I thought, okay, well, I have a Xanax prescription, so I'll just put them to sleep.
Okay.
Just overdose them. Quick and easy. Again, I know it's wrong, but all I wanted to do was the calmest and kindest thing. It just
Look, we're not here to judge, okay? That's not our job here. Honestly, we're not judging you, okay? But we just,
I understand.
Yeah, we just want to know.
So, I gave them some pills, and Archer went to sleep, and Lillian didn't. She just kept going. And I thought that was odd, because she's a baby, essentially, so it should have, affected her heavier. This is so hard to say, and I'm probably going to throw up.
So you gave them Xanax. Archer fell asleep. I'm assuming, did she fall asleep on the master bed?
No, she wanted to be in her room.
Okay.
And I said, okay. And thank you. This is so hard to say. So she was napping, and she napped for a long time. Lily wouldn't go back down, so I gave her some hydroxyzine, which is like Benadryl kind of.
An allergy pill?
Yeah, some more Xanax. I put it in some yogurt. I didn't do her. And
so you gave her that and more Xanax, or just that next after the Xanax, correct?
Yeah, sorry, just that.
Okay.
And I laid her down, and she didn't want to go to sleep, and she was going back and forth, and I got paranoid, and I was like, it's not working. This was supposed to be simple. I just wanted them to go to sleep and know that I love them. I just put her head in my chest and held her while she fell asleep, and I put a blanket over her mouth and held it tight. Smothered her.
This was Lillian? What room did this happen in?
In her room. We were rocking at the rocking chair, and I laid her in her crib and tucked her. I changed her clothes and put on a dry shirt because she had drooled on it. I changed her diaper, put her in her crib, and tucked her in with her blanket and her lovey. And then Archer, that was at 1:36.
1:36 p.m.?
Yes, sir.
Whenever that happened to Lillian?
And I kept thinking, okay, it's over. And then Archer woke up. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't. I spent the rest of the day with her. Eating, playing games, watching movies, trying so desperately not to panic. I think I was in shock, so I wasn't crying. I kept checking on Lillian like every 30 minutes. I told Archer she was taking a long nap.
But you knew she was gone?
Correct. And I knew that I should have called it in, but I was still scared about Archer, so I waited until she was ready for bed. And I gave her some more Xanax and hydroxyzine in her Zoloft that she takes. She fell asleep. And I couldn't. This one was harder. She's my first baby. She was older. She would see my face. She would know. She could talk. So I went smothered her. She fought me a little bit. And then I just laid there with her for like 30 minutes.
What time did that happen?
I forgot to look. I want to say 8 or so.
So whenever you say you smothered her, what'd you smother her with?
Well, my hand and a pillow.
How did you feel after they were gone?
I knew I would be asked that, and I knew that there's not an answer. I don't think you don't feel, you're numb, you're aware, but it's like everything's just floating, and you don't know where to go from there because you know there is no more. You know what I mean? Like, I knew I would spend the rest of my life in prison, and I just checked on them and told them I loved them and covered them up and situated them how they'd be comfortable, and just stood there for like 15 minutes and just stared at the floor and thought, you know, I was thinking, but there was no thought. I know that makes no sense. You don't, I was telling him in the elevator, you don't do what I did. You don't just wake up and do this. This is a gradual build-up of situations and fear and conversations and attempts to get help and evidence and whatnot, and you go into panic mode, and it's like your brain stops. You don't think after. You're just dead. I felt like I died with them. I have tears because I'm sad for them. I miss them already. But I'm not sad for saving them.
How long had you been planning that?
It's not that I had been planning it. It's that I knew...
Or you wanted to protect them. How long have you thought about saving them?
Well, I've been fighting to protect them and save them for like a year, but the thought of doing it that way has not crossed my mind. I guess it was the day before Easter when they were doing their Easter egg hunt. I think at the end of the day I did what I did, and it's unfortunate, and no one's going to care about what led me to it. I'm not okay with it. I don't think it's right. I think I do deserve to be arrested and serve time. But I couldn't go another day knowing that they were in harm. I just thought, what is the fastest and easiest way that I could just relieve them of this pain so they don't have to live this life, because something was going to happen to me and I wouldn't have been there for them, and they need me because I'm a good mom. I love my kids. You know, after I hurt them, it's hard to say that I killed them. I know I did, but after I hurt them, I wanted to just hurt myself. But I thought, I've got to have one last chance, and I've got to go talk to someone, and I've got to admit to what I did to make it right.
Mm-hmm.
Because I do understand morals and values and ethics and respect it, and I mean, I get right from wrong, but it's been eating me alive. I stand by the fact that I had enough evidence to show that my kids were in child produced by my family and paid for by my family, and the money was moving through my bank account.
Okay.
And once I found that out, and I was busting my ass to prove it, I just lost it. I completely lost it, because I knew what it was, and I knew that I would never be able to fully show anyone, because I found out that my husband had put some stuff on my phone. I don't know, he bought these like blockers and stuff where like I can't, so I haven't had like full internet access, and so I've never been able to fully see any of these videos, but I can get to them, and I figured out how to get to them. Some of them. I know some of them are probably on like the dark web. I don't know who my family really is. I do know who they are in my heart and soul. I'll never be able to prove it, and even by the time I'm done being in prison for the rest of my life, it'll never be proven. But I at least spoke it.
How specifically do you know that things are being transferred if they're not your phone? If your mom's phone is not your phone, how do you know this?
Okay, well, I'm going to preface with this. First off, this is now a mental health crisis because I have murdered my children, okay? I'm a little rattled, and I've been rattled for a while, but that's the way they want me, okay? There's all kinds of shit going on that makes no sense to me, and it has driven me crazy. I do sound crazy. If you thought I was sane right now, you'd probably be crazy. But I'm not. The sad thing is something is happening and has been happening to me, and then affecting my children, and then to my children. And I think that they thought I would just go crazy and they'd get the kids, and unfortunately that didn't happen. Unfortunately, I hurt them instead. It seems like every time that I just struggle with life, you know, we throw it back on mental health. There's nothing wrong with having a mental health problem. I'm currently having one.
A lot of people do.
But it's a scapegoat for my family to use to keep me quiet. But yes, I do take my meds regularly. I see my doctor. Some days I feel like I just have depression and that life is getting me. Then some days like today I feel like something's wrong. But I also did just kill my children. I don't know, I think, I don't think I would be diagnosed as bipolar if I hadn't gone through what I've gone through. I think it's situational. And I think that's why the medicine doesn't help. Because medicines fix chemical problems, not situational problems. My problems are situational, not chemical. I fought for safety, but I can't prove it. I'll say that. Because I don't want to keep spinning you around, and I don't want to be disrespectful to you, and I'm not trying to raise my voice or anything. This has killed me. It's taken my soul, and I just think now it's time for me to serve my time.
I mean, you gotta admit, it is hard to understand, right? I mean, most people, I mean, we deal with this all the time, but not specifically this, but this, you know, different things like this, but
I don't think marrying someone who's a predator and an abuser and finding out that there's a connection to your family for some reason, and then reporting them, and then them harassing you until you end up committing capital murder. I don't think that's hard to understand from a psychological point at all. No, I don't know who's hacked into my internet and who gets on my email and who duplicates things and who changes all the settings in my car. I'm not doing it, but someone is.
So what were you protecting the girls from then?
I'm done. Sorry.
inside when we were a minute.
Clear and organized. No evidence of hallucinations or severe mental disorganization, Compton described Madison in her insanity evaluation after reviewing the tape, which was crucial because it was one of the pieces of evidence closest to the time of the crime. There were at least 10 instances where Madison acknowledges that her actions were wrong and that she would suffer the legal consequences of it. Compton was no longer 95% certain that she would meet the bar for not guilty by reason of insanity. On the contrary, with the 911 call, the body cam interaction, and now the interrogation tape, Compton was absolutely certain Madison was guilty. The WinStar World Casino in Oklahoma is, for some Texans, a popular destination. It hugs the state line and, therefore, provides a convenient casino getaway for those in the northern parts of the Lone Star State. It also played host to a dinner date that Chris and Madison had approximately a month or so before the incident. Because despite the allegations and the pending divorce, the two were still romantically involved, and they decided, at Madison's behest, to take a one-day trip there to go over some things, including the divorce. Chris said he conveyed to her that he still loved and cared about her, and that even though they were getting a divorce, they could still co-parent, maybe work on their relationship, and perhaps someday get married again. But Madison had something totally different in mind. She told me she made a mistake and she didn't want the divorce anymore, Chris said in court. And I told her, there's already so much money spent. I'm not gonna just stop it. That was too bad for Madison, who felt the burden of the divorce process. In October, she expressed concern about a potential custody battle, according to Chris. Madison is scared he'll take the baby away, read one insanity evaluation. The two stopped having sex around early March, and on the 18th of that month, a little over 2 weeks before the incident, the divorce was official. On Good Friday, 3 days before the incident, she tells him via text to delete her from his Messenger and Facebook, to which he tells her to delete him from her life. Sorry you got caught being the person I always knew you were, she tells him. I never cheated on you, he responds. Go be with Tim. Do not paint me as a person I am not, ever, he adds. Madison, who said she discovered some messages she didn't like, would continue to lob accusations of infidelity at Chris through to the next day. As this was happening in the background, Tim came by that Saturday for a father-daughter Easter hunt. Everything seemed fine, just normal, friendly, Tim said about his interaction with Madison. Tim had brought over his computer and monitor because he planned to sleep over. But things got tense when, while doing cartwheels, Archer knocked over his monitor and broke it. So they decided to take Archer to the park to burn off some energy. At the park, Tim said his phone battery died while searching for new monitors. He said he asked Madison to use her phone, to which he said she shoved it at him and made a comment about how she didn't have a choice in the matter anyway. He said he didn't understand what that meant, but he did know that she was upset for some reason. Tim declined her phone and decided against staying over that night to avoid her temper, which her own mom described as awful. Later that day at 5 p.m., Chris came by to drop off Lillian. Despite Madison being in a bad mood, he kissed her goodbye as his daughter watched cartoons in the background. It is curious that her ex-husband stated during his interview that they had recently gone to the casino together and they kissed each other when he dropped off Lillian 2 days before the murder, Compton wrote in her insanity report. He stated that Madison initiated the divorce and he did not want the divorce. Later, she changed her mind, but he told her let's go through with the divorce, be friends, date, and see what happens. Thus, rejection likely was a component to actions. Madison then spent Easter Sunday with her mom and kids. Julie said she was quiet that day, took quite a few smoke breaks, interacted normally with the kids, and wasn't acting manic. But at 11 p.m. that night, Chris said he got a call from Madison, who told him that people were after her and the girls. The same old paranoia. The next morning, Chris waited but didn't receive the daily phone notification from Primrose. The school had a practice of taking photos of the children and sending them to the parents. When he called Madison, he said she told him that Archer is sick and that she's keeping both kids at home that day. He calls later to do some housekeeping after the divorce, including getting her Suburban on her own insurance policy. He said the conversation, which happened in the middle of the day, was normal. He tried calling her once again at just before 7 p.m. to check on the girls, but got no response. He didn't think anything of it because he said she was acting normal. That changed with the ring of the doorbell at 5 a.m. the next morning. With officers at the door, Chris asked the dreaded question. What did she do now? In my 28 years working as a forensic psychiatrist and evaluating severely mentally ill individuals who have committed murder, this case of Miss McDonald stands out as having the most pre-offense evidence of the offender having severe mental illness symptoms prior to committing the offense, Dr. Lisa Clayton concluded in her insanity report. The defense team's hire said there were things that could have prevented this, including having her blood drawn to ensure she was taking her meds, which her psychiatrist neglected to do. Otherwise, Dr. Clayton said, they didn't have evidence that she was taking the medications after she left the hospital and, crucially, in the days leading up to the incident. Detective Mayorga, the one who interviewed Madison, acknowledged that the decision not to seize the prescription meds from the apartment was an investigative blunder. Instead, they just took photos of the bottles, which told them nothing except when the pills were prescribed. The defense, in fact, had to ask the prosecution 2 years after the incident to get the bottles, which were then with Madison's mom. and determined that they contained more pills than they should have, considering her prescribed doses. They argued that she was still paranoid about her meds being tampered with. The defense also noted that Detective Mayorga didn't check with the jail whether she was taking her meds before her formal interview the morning after. There were other blunders along the way too, according to Dr. Clayton. Madison was prescribed amphetamines Adderall and Vyvanse, which make psychotic symptoms worse because they increase dopamine in the brain, and she said psychotic symptoms results from too much dopamine. Madison was eventually taken off the amphetamines at the hospital in December. After she was discharged that month, Irving PD's mental health response team, established about 4 years prior to ensure patients were getting continued support, had no contact with her until April 5th. The reason is because Madison had sent the unit an email ensuring them that she was getting outpatient care. That, the defense argued, was simply not good enough. Madison's primary psychiatrist testified that he last saw her on March 24th, 2021. She is doing really well, he wrote. Her mood was stable and her anxiety was minimal. She's feeling more organized, which has been helpful. She reports, enjoys working down the street, enjoys working, hoping for a promotion soon. Based on her last visit, I would not have thought she was in imminent harm to anyone. But at the end of the day, she was mentally ill, the defense said, and the type of disorder she has didn't just disappear after she left the hospital. Dr. Clayton opined that CPS should have done a better job of monitoring her mental illness treatment and should not have closed her case so soon, and defense lawyers said her family should not have voluntarily handed over the kids. Doctors may have also missed some important indicators because some of their interactions with Madison were either behind a mask or a screen, given the pandemic made masking and telemedicine appointments more common. Ultimately, though, Dr. Clayton argued that Madison learned from her last hospital stay that if she told people what she believed was a criminal enterprise, she would just lose the kids again. So she kept her mouth shut and acted normal until she got the kids back, only to then suspend them temporarily in heaven until she uncovered the trafficking operation, the defense argued. There was no rational explanation of this crime, no motive or secondary gain for this conduct. It is simply insanity, the defense said in its closing statement, noting that one of the first things she says on the 911 call is CP,
Child pornography.
giving credence to the argument that she was delusional at the time of the crime. On the other side, the state did not need to prove motive, and it did not dispute that Madison has severe mental health issues. But her own words implicate her in a capital murder case where she herself indicates numerous times that she knew her actions were legally wrong. On the 911 call,
And who was murdered?
My children. I have a diagnosed condition, but that has nothing to do with this.
in the lobby,
As a mother, you do anything in this world that you can do to keep them safe, and if that means I have to eliminate them and then pay the price for the rest of my life, I will.
and in the interview room.
I'm not okay with it. I don't think it's right. I think I do deserve to be arrested and serve time. I do understand morals and values and ethics and respect it, and I mean, I get right from wrong. I just think now it's time for me to serve my time.
She knew it was illegal because she has a history of reporting what she believed were crimes to the police. While she does mention CP on the 911 call, she also juxtaposes it with murder,
Child pornography and murder.
suggesting she knew they were both illegal, the state argued. Finally, not once did she tell police that she thought the children were only temporarily dead, even going so far as to use the word eliminate, which was only used once, suggesting she is engaging in revisionist history, Compton concluded. A therapist who was also a marriage counselor for Chris and Madison noted in an interview that Madison was unstable and prone to some delusional episodes, and that she wouldn't be truthful and told lies or stories to suit her needs. Similarly, seeing detectives were not falling for the tears, Madison flips and tells them that this was now a mental health crisis, suggesting, the state argued, that she had learned to weaponize her condition. My opinion was that she was mentally ill, and I believe that the mental illness undergirded the offense, Compton said in conclusion. I don't think there's any doubt about that, but it does not render her to the point that she did not understand that her conduct was wrong or illegal, and therefore, my opinion was, she did not meet the criteria for not guilty by reason of insanity. The jury, unanimous in its verdict, agreed. On April 19, 2023, Madison McDonald, whose prior criminal history boils down to a single juvenile charge of possession of alcohol as a minor, was convicted of capital murder, which carries the most severe punishment in Texas. Because the state did not ask for death, she was automatically sent that day to life in prison without parole. In December 2021, after being hospitalized, Madison stopped believing the trafficking operation was real, exonerating, in her mind at least, all those she once accused of wronging her and the children. She said she became severely depressed over the loss of her daughters and said she didn't try to take her own life because she rediscovered Christianity, believed that her children were now in heaven, and that she wouldn't be able to join them if she took herself out. On June 23, 2021, Madison sent a 2-page letter to Archer's father, Tim. She writes that she never stopped loving him and that there were a few times recently where I wanted to admit to you that I had developed an attraction/connection again, but I never had the words. I almost kissed you one day in my dining room. Sometimes I think we would have made it. To be honest with you, I wish we had you, me, and Archer. Not to disregard my love for Lillian. You have the kindest soul. You have always loved me exactly where I'm at, and I can't tell you how many times you kept me going. I want you to know that I love you and I'm terribly sorry for all of the pain you are going through. I beg of you to not hate me and give me a chance in the future to sit down face to face and talk. You know how much I love our baby and I would never, ever intentionally harm her. She was my world, our world. Tim said that Madison that night was not the one he once knew. You are not a monster, he wrote to her. You have and had serious mental health problems. What happened wasn't the real Maddie. I know that wasn't the real Maddie 100% in my heart. Tim did, however, testify that he was surprised by her sentiment about life without Lillian and said he never before heard her express that. Perhaps Tim would have also been surprised that it wouldn't have been the first time she said something like that, according to the record. Prior to the birth of Lillian, Madison made a statement to Chris about getting rid of Archer, so it could just be the two of them, according to a 2-page email Compton sent to the state, summarizing her insanity evaluation. Chris did not take it seriously, stating, according to the email, I thought she was talking out of her ass. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to me narrate the story, which is based on the primary sources. Special mention goes to the local reporters who lay the foundation, to the record staff for their assistance, and to you guys for engaging in the subject matter. I hope you're well, you're doing acts of charity, and I'll see you next time. Good night.